Today on House of Dice, we played a 50-point game on the Spread the Net scenario. There are 2 square zones that could be scored by Warcasters, Warlocks, Warjacks, and Warbeasts. In the middle, there is a circle zone that can be scored by Warcasters, Warlocks, and units. There are 2 flags that can be scored by Warcasters, Warlocks, and solos. In the middle of the table is a forest. There are 2 clouds, a trench, a hill, 2 stone walls, a bush, and a ruins wall. Protectorate of Menoth is led by the Testament of Menoth in the Exemplar Interdiction theme. In his battle group is a Crusader, a Castigator, and a Revenger. There is a unit of Knights Exemplar with the Officer Command attachment, a full unit of Exemplar Incinerators, a minimum unit of Choir, a full unit of Exemplar Errants, and Exemplar Warder Elias Gade. Scorn is led by Lord Assassin Morghoul in the Disciples of Agony theme. In his battle group is a Cyclops Savage, a Cyclops Shaman, a Rhinodon, and a Battle Boar. He brings along a unit of Paingiver Bloodrunners, a Master Tormentor, a Taskmaster, a minimum unit of Beast Handlers, a full unit of Annihilators, and a full unit of Croak Raiders. Menoth wins the roll and decides to choose the table edge. Menoth chooses the left side of the table. Morghoul deploys with the Annihilators and Rhinodon to his right. On his left, the Beast Handlers, Cyclops Shaman, Battle Boar, Taskmaster, and Cyclops Savage deploy. Testament deploys in the middle of the table. The Knights deploy to his right along with the Crusader. To his left, the Incinerators and Castigator deploy. The Choir deploys just behind the lines. The Paingiver Bloodrunner, Master Tormentor, and Croak Raiders advance deploy on the left side of Morghoul. The Paingiver Bloodrunners wait in ambush. The Exemplar Errants advance deploy behind the forest with Elias Gade. Exemplar Warder Elias Gade chooses the Croak Raiders as his prey target. Scorn, turn 1. Morghoul apparates forward, as does the Paingiver Bloodrunner Master Tormentor. Morghoul activates first and spends 2 Fury to cast Shadowplay on the Rhinodon. He then advances forward and then camps on 4 Fury. The Annihilators activate and run up the middle of the board. The Rhinodon activates and is forced to run towards the ruins for 1 Fury. The Croak Raiders activate and run up towards the Exemplar Errants, staying out of range of their crossbows. The Taskmaster advances and uses Temper Flesh on the Croak Raiders. The Bloodrunner Master Tormentor runs around the flag. The Cyclops Savage advances up behind the line of Croak Raiders. The Battle Boar is forced to run up with the Savage for 1 Fury. The Cyclops Shaman activates and runs up with Morghoul for 1 Fury. The Beast Handlers activate and advance up. 1 Beast Handler uses Condition on the Battle Boar to remove 1 Fury point from it. Protectorate of Menoth, turn 1. All the Warjacks power up, and the Testament of Menoth does not hand out any focus. Testament apparates forward. The Testament of Menoth activates first and spends 2 focus to cast Cloak of Ash onto the Errants. He then advances forward and spends 2 focus to cast Hallowed Avenger onto the Crusader. The Warcaster then holds on to his last 2 focus. The Incinerators activate and run up past the trenches. The Choir of Menoth advance and sing their hymn Shielding onto the Warjacks. The Crusader activates and spends a focus to run over the wall. The Castigator activates and runs up beside the Incinerators. The Revenger runs up the middle of the board for 1 focus. The Knights Exemplar activate and run up behind the Revenger. The Exemplar Errants advance into the forest. An Errant sees Annihilator and fires his crossbow. He needs a 7 to hit. Rolling a 6, the shot just misses its target. Another Menite fires his crossbow at Annihilator, but also rolls a 6 and the bolt misses its mark. An Errant loads a bolt into his crossbow and fires at a Scorn warrior, but rolls a 4 and the bolt goes wide. The last Errant in range fires a shot at a Croak Raider, needing a 7 to hit. Rolling a 7, the bolt sinks into the flesh of the raider, doing damage at dice -3. Rolling a 9, the Croak takes a tough check and rolls a 6, making his tough roll. He is knocked to the ground. Scorn, turn 2. The Bloodrunner, Master Tormentor, and Morghoul both apparate up. Morghoul leeches 1 fury from the Shaman and 1 fury from the Rhinodon. He then pays a fury to upkeep Shadowplay. The Bloodrunners ambush in beside the Crusader. The Cyclops Shaman activates first and uses its ability Primal Magic, and is forced to cast the Cyclops Savage Animus, Prescience, onto Morghoul, putting him at 2 fury. The Shaman then advances up between the warriors and sees an errant in the forest. With his evil eye, he fires a ghost shot at the errant, needing a 7 to hit. Rolling a 7, the errant is hit by the attack, taking damage at dice -4. The Cyclops is forced to boost the attack, and rolls a 13, killing the errant. The Testament of Menoth gains a soul. Morghoul activates and spends 3 focus to cast Mortality on the Exemplar Errants, needing an 8 to hit. Rolling a 10, the Errants are weakened by the spell. The Warlock then advances behind the line of Annihilators. The Croak Raiders activate. 2 forfeit their movement to aim, and the rest advance into range of the Exemplar Errants. The first Croak readies an oil gourd and throws it at the Menites, needing a 6 to hit. Rolling a 5, the oil misses its mark, and it deviates 2 inches in the 3 direction. 3 errants are covered in the flammable oil. A Croak Raider then aims at an errant, needing a 4 to hit with his flaming dart. Rolling a 9, the dart finds its mark, and due to the oil, the fire attack is automatically boosted, doing damage at dice -5. Rolling an 8, the errant is killed and Testament gains a soul. Another Croak aims a flaming dart at an errant. Rolling a 6, the dart hits the Menite, and rolling for damage, it rolls a 6, killing the errant. Testament gains another soul. The last Croak Raider in range shoots a fiery dart. Rolling a 7, the dart hits its target and he rolls for damage. Rolling a 7, the errant is killed and Testament gains another soul. The Taskmaster activates and advances up with the Croaks and gives them tempered flesh once again. The Bloodrunners activate and charge the Crusader. Their blades hit on anything but double 1s. Rolling a 7, the first Bloodrunner hits, doing damage at dice -9. Rolling a 9, the blade scratches across the surface of the Warjack, but does no damage. The second Bloodrunner seeks to find a weakness in the Warjack's armor. Rolling a 5, the attack hits, and rolling for damage, he rolls a 12 and does 3 points of damage to column 1 as its knife sinks through the armor. The last Bloodrunner rolls a 6, and his knife stabs into the armor of the Crusader, rolling for damage. He rolls an 11, doing 2 points of damage to column 4. A few Bloodrunners reposition 3 inches. The Battle Boar advances up behind the Croak Raiders. The Cyclops Savage joins the Battle Boar. The Annihilators run up the middle of the field. The Rhinodon activates and is forced to cast its Animus Spiny Growth for 1 fury. It is then forced to trample towards the Castigator, getting itself into the ruins. The Master Tormentor stays on the flag, and the Beast Handlers run up behind the Skorne Army. Protectorate of Menoth, turn 2. The Testament of Menoth goes up to 10 focus due to his collected souls. He spends 1 to upkeep Cloak of Ash on the Errants, then gives 2 focus to the Crusader. The Exemplar Incinerators activate first. The leader issues a press forward order and 2 warriors charge the Annihilators. The rest follow up behind them. The first Incinerator needs a 6 to hit. He swings his blazing sword and rolling a 7, the blade slashes across the Annihilator, doing damage at dice -1. Rolling a 10, his foe gets eviscerated and dies. The second Incinerator raises his sword, and rolling an 8, the attack hits the Annihilator. Rolling a 15, the Scorn warrior slumps to the ground as he dies. The Crusader activates and swings its mace at the Bloodrunner beside it. The Warjack needs an 8 to hit and spends a focus to boost the attack. Rolling a 13, the mace smashes into the Agile warrior, doing damage at dice +8. Rolling a 7, the warrior is crushed beneath the weight of the mace. The Warjack then boosts to hit with his fist, targeting another Bloodrunner. His fist crashes into the ground, rolling a 7, the attack misses. The Crusader buys an attack with its mace, and rolling an 8, it comes crashing down on the Bloodrunner. And rolling a 5 for damage, the Paingiver is obliterated by the attack. The Exemplar Errants activate, and the leader yells at them to press forward. 3 of the Menites charge the remaining Paingiver Bloodrunners in the zone. The first errant slashes out, needing a 7 to hit the Bloodrunner. Rolling a 5, the Paingiver steps deftly out of the way. The errant leader strikes out with his blade. Rolling a 7, he catches the Bloodrunner, doing damage at dice -2. Rolling a 17, he lacerates the warrior, killing him. The last errant stabs out with his sword, and rolling a 10, the sword finds its foe. And he rolls for damage. Rolling a 13, he cuts into the Bloodrunner, killing him. Exemplar Warder Elias Gade steps forward and spots a Paingiver Bloodrunner. He levels his crossbow at the Scorn warrior, needing a 7 to hit. He loses a bolt and rolls a 5. The Bloodrunner ducks and avoids the bolt. Elias Gade aims his second crossbow and pulls the trigger. Rolling an 8, the bolt finds its mark in the Bloodrunner. It does damage at dice -1. And rolling a 7, the bolt pierces through the chest of the Bloodrunner, killing him. The Revenger spends a focus to run up beside the Incinerators and uses the forest to block line of sight to the warriors behind it. The Knights Exemplar activate and receive a run order. They pile in behind the Revenger and the Incinerators. The Testament of Menoth activates and spends 2 focus to use his spell Raise the Dead. He brings back a slain Exemplar Errant. He spends 2 focus to do this again, and then 2 more to raise a 3rd Errant. He then advances up behind the line of warriors. The choir runs up behind the Menoth battle lines. The Castigator spends a focus to run up to the wall. Menoth scores 1 control point, and Scorn scores 2. Scorn, turn 3. Morghoul apparates around the bushes, and the Master Tormentor apparates towards the forest. The Bloodrunner apparates towards the edge of the wall. Morghoul leeches 2 Fury from the Rhinodon and 2 Fury from the Shaman. He then spends a Fury to upkeep Shadow Play on the Rhinodon. The Master Tormentor activates first and charges the Errant with a Thresher attack. She needs a 6 to hit each of the 3 Errants with her Barbed Whip. She rolls against the first Errant, and rolling a 6, the whip finds a gap in the Menite's armor, and doing damage at dice -8. Rolling a 13, the whip cuts into the Errant and kills him. She rolls against the second Errant, and rolling an 11, the Barbed Whip slashes into the Exemplar, and rolling for damage, she rolls a 9, killing the Errant. Rolling against the last Errant, she rolls a 7, and the blade sinks deep into the Menite. Rolling for damage, she rolls a 14, and the Errant collapses to the ground as he dies. The Testament of Menoth gains 3 souls from the fallen Errants. The Master Tormentor then gets to sprint and advances behind the cloud. The Croak Raiders activate and advance up between the forest and the cloud. A Raider readies an oil gourd and targets the Crusader standing in the zone. It needs a 4 to hit the heavy Warjack. He hurls the oil, and rolling a 6, the gourd smashes into the Crusader, spilling flammable oil all over the Warjack. The Croak Raiders then target the Warjack with their flaming darts. The first one fires a dart, needing a 4 to hit. Rolling a 6, the dart hits the Crusader, and the oil ignites, doing damage at dice -8. Rolling a 14, it does 6 damage to column 1. The next Raider fires, and rolling an 8, the dart hits. The oil once again flares up, and rolling an 11, it does 3 damage to column 4 of the Warjack. The third Croak fires, but rolls a 3 and the shot falls short of its target. The next Raider shoots a dart, and with an 11, the shot finds its target. He rolls for damage, but rolls a 6 and the dart does no damage. Another Croak fires, and rolling a 7, the oil ignites from the flames, and rolling for damage, he rolls an 11, doing 3 damage to column 1. A Raider readies a dart and shoots, but rolls a 3 and the dart goes wide. The next Croak fires, and rolling a 9, the dart hits the Crusader. Rolling for damage, it rolls a 15, doing 7 damage to column 4, taking out the cortex of the Warjack. The last Raider fires a dart, and rolling a 6, it hits the Crusader. Rolling for damage, it rolls an 11, doing 3 damage to column 1. The Taskmaster advances up behind the Croak Raiders and gives them tempered flesh. The Battle Boar advances up as well as the Savage. The Cyclops Shaman advances around the Annihilators and is forced to use the Cyclops Savage Animus Prescience on Lord Assassin Morghoul. He then targets Incinerator with his Evil Eye, needing a 6 to hit. The Shaman is forced to boost the attack, and rolling a 16, the bolt of magical energy hits the Exemplar, doing damage at dice -5. The Shaman is forced to boost the damage, and rolls a 13, doing 8 damage to the Incinerator, triggering Vengeance and killing him. Testament gains a soul. Lord Assassin Morghoul activates and casts Mortality on the Exemplar Incinerators, needing a 5 to hit. he rolls a 3 and then uses Future Sight to boost the attack, and a roll of 8, the Incinerators are weakened by the spell. The Annihilators activate and charge into the Menite battle lines. The first Annihilator charges the Exemplar leader, needing a 5 to hit. He swings his greatsword and rolling a 7, the blade slashes into the knight, doing damage at dice -3. Rolling a 9, the knight is cleaved in half by the greatsword, and Testament gains a soul. The rest of the knights gain battle driven. The Annihilator then makes a berserk attack against the knight behind the slain leader. Rolling a 9, the sword slashes expertly into the knight, and it does damage at dice -5. Rolling a 7, the knight is killed, and Testament gains another soul. The Annihilator berserks into the Revenger, needing a 5 to hit, but rolls a 4 and misses. The next Annihilator attacks the Revenger with his greatsword, and rolling a 6, the attack hits the Warjack and does damage at dice -7. Rolling an 11, it does 4 damage to column 2. Another Annihilator strikes at the Warjack, and rolling a 10, his sword comes crashing down into the armor of the Warjack. And rolling a 13, he does 6 damage to column 1, crippling the left arm of the Revenger. Annihilator slashes out with his greatsword at a Knight Exemplar, and rolling an 11, the attack cuts into the Knight. Rolling for damage, he rolls a 12 and kills the Knight. Testament gains another soul. In a berserking rage, he strikes at the Incinerator, hitting on anything but double ones. Rolling a 7, the sword smashes into the Incinerator, doing damage at dice -3. Rolling a 6, it does 3 damage to the Incinerator. Annihilator raises his sword to attack the Castigator, trying to see through the ashen veil surrounding the Warjack. He needs a 7 to hit, and rolling an 8, the sword crashes down onto the Warjack, doing damage at dice -7. He rolls a 13, doing 6 damage to column 5. Another Annihilator joins the attack on the heavy Warjack, and rolling an 8, his sword slams into the Castigator. Rolling for damage, he rolls an 11, doing 4 damage to column 6 and crippling the right arm. The last Annihilator attacks the Incinerator, hitting on anything but double ones. And rolling a 9, his greatsword stabs into the Exemplar, doing damage at dice -5. Rolling a 16, the Incinerator is slain by the Scorn warrior, and Testament gains another soul. He berserks into the back of Annihilator, and he needs a 4 to hit. Rolling an 8, the sword cuts into the warrior, doing damage at dice -1. Rolling a 6, he kills the Annihilator. He continues his berserker rage and strikes at another Annihilator, and once again, rolling an 8, the warrior is caught by surprise, and rolling a 7 for damage, is killed by the attack. The Rhinodon advances out from the ruins and uses its Animus, Spiny Growth, for 1 fury, then is riled for 1 more fury. The last remaining Bloodrunner charges an Exemplar Errant, needing a 7 to hit, but rolling double ones, the blade fails to find its target. The Bloodrunner then repositions. Scorn scores 2 control points. Protectorate of Menoth, turn 3. The Incinerators get their Vengeance move and advance up towards the Annihilators. One Incinerator is in range to attack Annihilator. He swings his blazing sword, needing a 6 to hit, but rolls a 4 and the Annihilator dodges the attack. The Revenger and the Castigator power up, and Testament gains 6 focus from his souls. The Crusader checks to see if the fire goes out. Rolling a 1, the fire goes out. The Castigator activates and advances up into the Annihilators. It uses its ability Combustion, catching 3 Annihilators with the flames. The Incinerators are immune to the damage. The Annihilators take damage at dice -1, and rolling a 7, the first one is forced to take a tough roll, and rolling a 3, he is killed. Against the second Annihilator, it rolls a 3, and the Annihilator takes a tough roll. It rolls a 6 and survives. Against the third Annihilator, it rolls a 7 and the Annihilator rolls for tough. Rolling a 5, it toughs and is knocked down. The Castigator then buys an attack with his non-crippled left Flame Fist, automatically hitting and doing damage at dice +3. Rolling an 8, he is squished by the huge fist. The Crusader activates and advances into the back arc of the Bloodrunner, taking a free strike as he leaves the range of the warrior. The Bloodrunner hits on anything but double ones, and rolling a 7, the blade hits the armor, doing damage at dice -11. Rolling a 10, it does no damage to the Warjack. The Crusader then attacks the Bloodrunner in his back arc, needing a 6 to hit, but rolls a 4. With a thud, the mace hits the ground as the Bloodrunner steps out of the way. The Crusader uses its crippled fist to try and smash the Bloodrunner, and rolling a 6, the fist hits the warrior, doing damage at dice +3. and rolling a 2, it kills the Bloodrunner. The Testament of Menoth activates and spends all 12 focus to cast Raise the Dead 6 times, bringing back 2 Cinerators, 3 Knights, and an Errant. He then casts his feat Essence of Dust, making all models in his control range incorporeal. Exemplar Warder Elias Gade activates and advances past the Crusader. He then points his first crossbow at a Croak Raider needing a 4 to hit. Elias breathes, then pulls the trigger, rolling a 6, the bolt finds its prey, sinking into the flesh of the Raider, doing damage at dice -1. Rolling a 5, the Croak takes a tough roll, but rolls a 2 and fails. Gade then levels his second crossbow at a Croak Raider. The bolt flies through the air, and rolling an 11, it finds its mark. Rolling for damage, he rolls an 8 and the Raider takes a tough roll, and rolling a 4, it fails and is killed. The Knights Exemplar receive a press forward order. A few Knights charge the Annihilators and the rest run up. The first Knight swings his Relic Blade in a wide arc, needing a 6 to hit. Rolling a 10, the blade slashes across the torso of the Annihilator, doing damage at straight dice. Rolling a 15, the Annihilator has to take a tough check. He rolls a 6 and survives, but is knocked down. The second Knight raises his sword and brings it down onto a knockdown Annihilator, automatically hitting him and doing damage at straight dice. Rolling a 12, the Annihilator is killed. He then gets to sidestep and cleaves the attack into another Annihilator. Rolling an 8, he cuts into the warrior, and rolling for damage, he rolls a 9. The Annihilator takes a tough check, and rolling a 3, he fails and dies. The Revenger charges that Annihilator and stabs out with his spear, needing a 5 to hit, and rolling a 7, the blade pierces the Scorn warrior, doing damage at straight dice. Rolling a 13, the Annihilator is forced to take a tough check, and rolling a 1, he fails and is killed. The Cinerators receive a press forward order, and one charges the last remaining Annihilator. He sinks his blade into the knockdown warrior and does damage at dice -1. Rolling a 16, the Annihilator is killed. The Errants receive a press forward order and charge into the Croaks. A few Errants run through the Raiders to contest the flag. The first Errant thrusts out his sword, needing a 7 to hit the Croak Raider. Rolling an 11, the short sword finds its mark, doing damage at dice -4. Rolling a 22, the Croak Raider is killed, and he rolls for tough. Rolling a 3, he dies. The second Errant charges a Raider. He slashes with his sword, rolling a 7. The sword cuts into the Croak. He rolls for damage, and rolling a 14, the Croak is forced to take a tough roll. Rolling a 4, he fails his roll and dies. The Choir of Menoth activates and runs behind the Menoth lines. Menoth scores 2 control points. Scorn, turn 4. The Master Tormentor apparates forward, and so does Lord Assassin Morghoul. Morghoul leeches 2 Fury from the Rhinodon and 3 from the Shaman. Lord Assassin Morghoul activates first and spends 2 focus to cast the Battleboar Animus Primal on the Rhinodon. Morghoul then advances into the middle of the table and uses his feat, Blackout, causing blind to all Menite models in Morghoul's control area and line of sight. The Beast Handlers shuffle around a bit, then use their ability Enrage on the Battleboar, Rhinodon, and Cyclops Shaman. The Rhinodon activates and charges the Castigator, hitting on anything but double ones. It swings its massive tail, and rolling a 6, it's a critical hit. The force of the attack knocks the Warjack to the ground, doing damage at straight dice. Rolling a 12, it does 12 damage to column 5 and cripples the left arm of the Castigator. The tail continues its swing and hits a Cinerator on anything but double ones. Rolling an 8, the tail smashes into the warrior, doing damage at dice +2. Rolling an 8, it does 10 damage and kills the Cinerator, giving Testament a soul. The tail smashes into another Cinerator, and rolling an 11, the warrior is caught in the swing. Rolling for damage, it rolls a 10, doing 12 damage and killing the Exemplar, giving Testament a soul. The tail collides into the Revenger, hitting on anything but double ones. Rolling a 7, the tail smashes into the Light Warjack. It does damage at dice +2, and rolling a 5, it does 7 damage to column 6, taking out the movement system of the Revenger. The Rhinodon is forced to make another tail attack against the Castigator, automatically hitting it due to knockdown. It raises its tail and slams it down onto the Warjack, and rolling a 10, it does 10 damage to column 1, destroying the Warjack. It's forced to attack the Revenger with its tail, and it rolls an 8. The tail crashes into the Light Warjack, doing damage at dice +2. Rolling a 9, it does 11 damage to column 3, destroying the Warjack. It then uses its Animus Spiny Growth for 1 Fury. The Cyclops Shaman activates and advances behind the bushes. It then shoots its Evil Eye into the back arc of Incinerator, hitting on anything but double ones. Rolling a 4, the Magical Bolt finds its mark, doing damage at dice plus 5. It's forced to boost the attack, and rolling a 15, it kills the Menite. The Taskmaster attacks an Errant with his Man-Catcher, hitting on a 4 or higher. Rolling a 7, he stabs out, doing damage at dice minus 6. Rolling a 4, it does no damage but reduces the defense of the Exemplar. The Cyclops Savage gets closer to the Errants. It attacks an Errant with its Falchion, needing an 8 to hit. Rolling a 5, it uses Future Sight to boost the attack, and gets an 11, and it does damage at dice minus 3. Rolling a 10, the sword slashes through the armor of the Errant, killing him. The Testament of Menoth gains a soul. The Savage is forced to attack a blinded Errant, hitting on anything but double ones. Rolling a 3, the blade slices through the air and it finds its foe. Rolling for damage, it rolls a 7, killing the Errant, and Testament gains another soul. The Cyclops is forced to attack another Errant. It raises its sword, and rolling an 8, it chops into the Exemplar with a downward slash. Rolling a 3 for damage, the blade deflects off the armor of the Errant. Her Master Tormentor activates and charges Exemplar Warder Elias Gade with a Thresher attack. She catches 2 more Errants with her Barbed Whip. Against Elias, she needs a 6 to hit. Rolling a 9, the Barbed Whip catches the Exemplar Warder, doing damage at dice minus 8. Rolling a 19, she does 11 damage to Elias. A nearby Errant jumps in the way to protect Elias Gade due to Call to Sacrifice. The Exemplar Warder is left on 1 health. The Barbed Whip hits an Errant, but she rolls a 3 and misses. Against the 3rd Exemplar Errant, she rolls a 6 and the barbs catch into the armor of the Menite. Rolling an 8, the attack does no damage, but due to anatomical precision, the attack does 1 point of damage and kills the Errant. Testament of Menoth gains a soul. She then repositions back. The Battle Boar advances up and attacks an Exemplar Errant with its claws. It needs a 5 to hit, and rolling an 11, the claws rake through the armor of the Menite, doing damage at dice minus 5. It's forced to boost the attack, and rolling a 10, the Errant is killed. Testament gains another soul. The Croak Raiders activate and forfeit their movement to aim. The first Croak shoots a flaming dart on a blinded Errant, hitting on anything but double ones. Rolling a 7, the dart flies through the air and finds its target. The dart does damage at dice minus 5. Rolling a 7, the Errant is killed and Testament gains a soul. A second Croak fires a dart, and rolling a 10, the dart flies into the armor of the Errant. Rolling for damage, it rolls a 7, killing the Exemplar. Testament gains another soul. A Croak Raider readies an oil gourd and throws it at the Crusader, hitting on anything but double ones. Rolling a 7, the oil sprays all over the Warjack and the Exemplar Warder Elias Gade. A Croak Raider then shoots a flaming dart at Elias, needing a 4 to hit. Rolling an 8, the oil ignites and does damage at dice minus 5. Rolling a 9, Elias Gade is killed by the flames. Another Croak Raider readies a dart and fires it at the Crusader. Rolling a 5, the Warjack is set ablaze, doing damage at dice minus 8. Rolling an 8, the Warjack's armor protects it from damage. The last Croak fires a dart, and rolling an 8, the Warjack is hit by the flaming dart. Rolling a 10 for damage, it does 2 damage to column 3. Scorn scores 2 control points. Protectorate of Menoth, turn 4. The Testament of Menoth apparates forward. The Incinerator gets to make a vengeance move, and he attacks the Rhinodon. Due to blind, he needs an 8 to hit. Rolling an 8, the sword slashes into the Warbeast, doing damage at dice minus 8. Rolling a 7, it does no damage. The Testament of Menoth goes up to 17 focus from his souls. He then spends 1 focus to shake blind. The Crusader checks to see if the fire goes out. Rolling a 1, the fire goes out. The Knights Exemplar activate and forfeit their combat action to shake blind. They advance out of the way, making room for the Testament of Menoth. The Testament of Menoth activates next and advances up. He sees Lord Assassin Morghoul and spends 2 focus to cast Dust to Dust, needing a 10 to hit. The Warcaster spends a focus to boost the attack, and rolling a 10, the spell hits Morghoul, doing damage at dice minus 2. Rolling a 5, it does 3 damage, but Morghoul uses a Fury to transfer the damage to the Shaman. It takes 3 damage to Spiral 6. Testament casts Dust to Dust again and boosts the attack. Rolling a 17, the spell hits Morghoul, and rolling for damage, he rolls a 7. Morghoul takes 5 damage, but transfers it to the Battle Boar, doing 5 damage to Spiral 3. Testament of Menoth casts Dust to Dust again and boosts the attack. Rolling a 13, the spell crashes into Morghoul, and rolling a 7, it does 5 damage to the Lord Assassin. Testament continues his barrage and casts Dust to Dust again, also boosting the attack. Rolling a 16, the spell hits the enemy Warlock, and rolling for damage, he rolls an 8, doing 6 damage to the Lord Assassin. The Warcaster casts Dust to Dust again, and also boosts the attack, but rolls a 7, and Morghoul dodges the attack. The Crusader advances and attacks the Master Tormentor with its mace. It needs an 8 to hit. Rolling a 9, the mace crashes down onto the Bloodrunner, and doing damage at dice plus 6, it rolls a 4 and crushes the Paingiver Bloodrunner Master Tormentor. The Choir of Menoth activates and forfeits their action and advances up. The Incinerator forfeits his movement and attacks the Rhinodon with his flaming blade. He needs an 8 to hit, and rolling a 7, the Exemplar misjudges his swing and misses the Warbeast. Scorn scores 2 control points and Menoth scores 1. Scorn, turn 5. Morghoul leeches 3 Fury from the Cyclops Savage, 1 Fury from the Battle Boar, and 1 Fury from the Cyclops Shaman. The Rhinodon it automatically frenzies due to Primal. It attacks Incinerator with its tail, needing a 5 to hit. Rolling an 11, the tail smashes into the Menite, doing damage at dice minus 2. Rolling an 8, it crushes the Incinerator. Testament of Menoth gains a soul. Lord Assassin Morghoul apparates forward. Morghoul activates first and charges the enemy Warcaster. He spends a focus to cast Flashing Blade and makes a fan attack against the Testament of Menoth. He needs a 6 to hit. Rolling a 6, the fan hits Testament and causes blind. It does damage at dice minus 8, and rolling a 6, it does no damage. Morghoul then makes his charge attack with his dagger, Mercy. He slashes out and hits on anything but double 1s. Rolling a 7, the dagger stabs into Testament's armor, doing damage at dice minus 3. Rolling a 15, it does 12 damage to the Menite Warcaster. Morghoul attacks with his fan, and rolling a 9, he hits Testament. Rolling for damage, he rolls an 11, doing 3 damage to the Testament of Menoth. He spends a Fury and buys an attack with Mercy, and rolling a 7, he slashes at the Warcaster. And rolling a 9 for damage, he does 6 damage and kills the Warcaster.
And that results in a Scorn victory. So Brandon, what was your idea when you made this list?
So the basic idea for the list is to try and apply mortality onto targets, get the Croak Raiders to do some damage with the oil and the 3 dice damage with the fire, then follow up with some Annihilators and the ambushing Bloodrunners to contest zones.
Yeah, my idea with my list was a lot of Weapon Masters, a lot of recursion, and to simply try and get in your face and wear you down.
Certainly wore me down.
Yes, exactly. Just sat there and like seeing your models disappearing and mine not was fantastic. You're like, oh, I killed 10 of your guys. And I go, okay, my turn. 8 of them come back.
Yeah.
And creating that disparity was awesome. Just being able to stay up there.
Yeah. There was a turn I got up on Scenario, and then you just came right back.
Came right back, exactly. And I ended up going for the assassination run. It did cost me the game, but at the same time, I feel like you only need to score 1 or 2 points to win. And I had 16 focus, and I don't think I was ever going to get that much again. It was a long shot, but I wanted to try making it. Unfortunately, as I said, it failed, but it did do quite a bit of damage.
Super close. I was really scared.
Yeah, the one missing. Now, I did get lucky. Almost all of them hit. I had 1 fail. 2 of them didn't do as much damage as I had hoped. But, I think it kind of balanced out and it almost killed them. It was really your feat that caused you to, obviously you probably wouldn't have brought Morghoul up at that point. Yeah. But all my guys, I couldn't really do much with them. They're either standing still, which most of them were blocking Testament's way, or they were going to give up with combat action. So, yeah, it was really good. It came down. It was very tight. I feel like we both played pretty well. But do you have any suggestions on what I could do differently?
I think it was pretty good. Going first is a potential because, as we were talking about it after the game, the errants, when they come up, they set a line of engagement, so that actually creates a kill zone that all the Croaks would have to walk into, and I just have to hope that I get my tough rolls.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I felt keeping Gade with the errants was kind of a mistake. I should have had them threatening your Croak Raiders, but have Gade scoring that flag.
Yeah, it's like, which side, what do you want from him? Yeah.
Exactly, because I should have realized you didn't have much range threat on the other side of the board. So having Gate over there, it's not like he's in trouble. He doesn't need the self-sacrificing errants around him.
For sure.
He could have been scoring and to match your flags. And at that point, I think I would have actually started getting ahead on points and just run that out until you're down.
Yeah, changes the whole thing because instead of having the Bloodrunners come in on your robot or your rectangle zone, they had to come in on the flag.
Exactly.
Just changes the whole game.
Yeah.
And like you got that, you would have had that flag locked down.
Yeah. So other than that, it was a great game. I had a good time. And thank you guys for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. And if you'd like to support the channel, check us out on patreon.com. Thanks for watching and have a good one.